Hi everyone, I'm Dawn. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for visiting with me today. So today we're going to revisit the 80s, and I have 11 prompts I'm going to respond to. So let's just get started. So the first one is favorite 80s music video. And that was actually surprisingly very easy for me because I love, we're from the 80s where that was when MTV and music videos became a real thing. And my favorite 80s music video is Don't Come Around Here No More by Tom Petty, because it's got the whole Alice in Wonderland theme and it's so creepy. It's just so creepy, and I love the creepy shit. In one part, they're cutting her up. She's a cake and they're cutting her up. And it just reminds me of a really horrible nightmare I would like a recurring theme in nightmares I would have when I was very young, like with the cake. And I don't want to get into the nightmare, but even when I think about that nightmare now, I get a little woo. But that video just really hits home for me. And you would think I would hate it because of that, but I don't. I love it just because of the whole Alice theme and everything. So yeah, really love that video. Some other videos I like I loved all the Duran Duran videos, and gosh, what else? I liked so many. I liked music videos, like little short movies with our, favorite songs as the background. They were great. And then there were some pretty lame videos too, and I liked a lot of the live videos too, like from concerts and stuff. Favorite 80s rock band. I would say, well, my answers they're not really 80s rock bands. They were the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even today. But I would say AC/DC for sure, and The Pretenders. Oh, Brass in Pocket was also one of my favorite videos. Favorite 80s new wave band. I don't know if they're new wave, but I would consider them new wave. Duran Duran, loved them. And what drives me crazy is on Facebook, when Duran Duran recently went on tour and they came here, all these girls that, bullied me in high school because all I cared about was music and, oh, who likes Duran Duran, blah, blah, blah. They would do that. They were all excited and they had their little girls' night photos of them going to see Duran Duran recently, and I honestly wanted to line them all up and smack them across the face because these bitches bullied me because I cared about music. I didn't care about, getting with boys and stuff like that. I cared about music and I cared about Duran Duran, you know what I mean? Also Depeche Mode and Devo. And I would consider all of those new wave. Maybe you don't, but I do. Favorite 80s alternative bands. The Cure, The Smiths, and some might argue that alternative and new wave are the same thing, or that Depeche Mode was alternative, but I said what I said. But The Cure and The Smiths were my favorite alternative bands. Favorite 80s solo male singer, that was Prince. Loved Prince. It wasn't until I became an adult that I realized how inappropriate his music is for young girls, but anyway, was a big Prince fan. Favorite 80s solo female singer, Pat Benatar. I love me some Pat Benatar. She was awesome. My mom would always try to get me to get my hair cut like hers, but I was a long hair girl. I didn't want a short haircut, but on Pat Benatar, it's very sexy. Favorite 80s movie. I have several answers. And I'm going to give you these, but there are a million more, because then if we break it down into 80s genres, like favorite 80s horror movie, favorite 80s comedy, favorite 80s drama, you know what I mean? You break it down like that, then, but that goes into the next category, sort of. Favorite 80s movie, E.T. Loved E.T. so much. The Lost Boys, we would go to the theater and watch it, and because the boy that worked at the movie theater, he was like a shift manager or something, but he had a crush on me, so he would just let me sit there all day and watch it over and over again, me and my friend. So E.T., The Lost Boys, Flashdance. I loved Flashdance. I saw it recently and I was like, this is a horrible movie, but I loved Flashdance back then. The Outsiders, you know, The Outsiders. And that was another thing. Girls bullied me and my friend because we liked The Outsiders and Ralph Macchio and stuff. And they were all just like, why do you like that? Because they were all about 13, 14 getting into drugs and sex and stuff. And we weren't there in our life. At least I wasn't. And also Beetlejuice. My favorite 80s scary movie. It's a long list. This list is not comprehensive at all. A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Lost Boys again, The Shining, The Evil Dead, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, Friday the 13th, Child's Play, Children of the Corn, and Silver Bullet. But I could sit here all day and rattle off 80s horror movies that I love. But those are some of my favorites. I can't get into all of them, as this would be a very long video. Favorite 80s concert you went to? Heart. I saw Rat, and Bon Jovi opened up for Rat. And I liked it a lot, but Heart was my favorite 80s concert. It was really fun. And Autograph opened up for them. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but it was very exciting. Favorite 80s male actor. I mean, I have so many of these too. Like there's Ralph Macchio, there's Harrison Ford. But then I really sat down and thought of it a little bit. And then I think, you know, I really loved Michael Keaton in the 80s. Loved him. And I know I saw Mr. Mom, but I don't remember it. But I remember thinking he was really funny in it. But yeah, Michael Keaton was my favorite 80s actor. Because Harrison Ford and Ralph Macchio were great. But I don't want to say I found Michael Keaton versatile, because I don't think I was thinking in those terms when I was a teenager, because I was a teenager in the 80s. I was 10 to 19 in the 80s. My favorite 80s actress is Winona Ryder. She was my favorite. And I think that's it. That's the list. Those are the prompts I was going to respond to. Please comment with what your favorite 80s stuff is. I know the 80s are kind of making a comeback, but not exactly. Like I was walking around Walmart looking at the clothes and I was like, this is very 80s in here. But I don't really think the 80s was that great of a time for fashion. You know, it was like kind of boring, just kind of blasé, like, you know, you were there and this is what you wore. But I mean, I didn't dislike the 80s, but these people have this like younger people have this idea of the 80s, and then people that grew up in the 80s are all like, the 80s were the best. And I just don't think so. I just don't think it was the best. You know, because people are like, well, before we had our screens and stuff, people always think that their decade in which they experienced, you know, their teen years was the best decade there is. They aren't thinking, they don't really think the 80s or the 50s or the 70s were that great. What they miss is being that age. And I don't miss being that age because for the most part, my teen years were horrible. I was verbally and emotionally abused. I was bullied at home and at school. I was afraid of everything because I was afraid, because you could do anything. Like, you literally, if you were my mother's child, you could literally do nothing wrong and she would still find something wrong. Like, why do you sit there and write all day? Or, you know, it's just, and now this is going to a dark place. I'm not going to get into that, but I'm just saying the 80s were no better or no worse. They were just kind of there, you know. I don't get it. I don't get the fascination with the 80s. I think the people who are my age, who are always talking about how great the 80s were, they're just craving their youth. You know, they're not craving the 80s, because the 80s weren't that great. Like, there were things about the 80s I liked that I don't do now, but I certainly can do if I wanted to. Like, everybody's obsessed with this drinking from the water hose bullshit. There are still hoses. Drink from a water hose if you goddamn want to. Nobody's stopping you. You know, everybody's like, well, we drank from a water hose. Well, drink from a water hose. I could give less of a shit, or couldn't. Just, y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Those memes that go around, well, kids these days just drink bottled water, blah, blah, blah. I drank from a water hose and I liked it that way. Well, drink from a water hose. Who cares? Nobody cares. So anyway, that's it. Thank you for revisiting the 80s with me. Let me know your favorite 80s stuff, if there is anything, or if you're substantially younger than me and you didn't live in the 80s, or you were very young in the 80s. Let me know what perceptions you have of the 80s, so I can look at them and either say, no, it wasn't like that, or be like, yeah, I guess, you know. So anyway, that's it. Thanks so much for watching, and I will talk to everyone later. Bye.